Sure is cozy back here in the third row. Anyways. Yeah. Oh, hey. I didn't see you there. You see, my name is Sam. And I'm here to talk to you guys about my 1998 Mercedes E320 station wagon. And it is far too hot outside, as you can probably tell. I bought this car from a friend of mine out in Salina, Kansas, and drove it back to Houston, Texas in one day with little knowledge or sort of even hope that it would make it back. But we did make it back in one day in one piece, with some minor issues along the way, nothing really to talk about. And so I will tell you about this perilous journey, which starts at Houston IAH Airport, in which I was actually there for 5 hours the day prior, but my flight was canceled due to inclement weather. Once I was on board, I quickly realized I was only one of maybe 3 or 4 other passengers on the entire jet. This also coincidentally was United's first flight on this very route, which probably explains why it wasn't very busy. While on board, an Argentinian can of Sprite insulted me for my high intake of calories, but I ignored that and I continued with my journey. And, well, there wasn't a whole lot to see. The flight was only about an hour and 10 minutes or so, maybe even less than that, and all you really saw was agricultural land. I guess that's really what covers this part of the country. I was pretty surprised at how small this airport was. I mean, the terminal felt kind of like a classroom, and the wait for the Uber was about 35 minutes because there just weren't very many around, which I guess makes sense for a small town. This right here is the entire terminal. There's one hallway that goes to the actual plane, and security's right there. And yeah, that's it. This is crazy. Huh. You're telling me there was a 747 here? That's insane.
Behold. And you can kind of see it. Yep. Alright, let's figure this out.
Alright, so I'm at my friend's brother's house. Here's the key to the car, and here's the Volvo key. Gotta change this hose in the Volvo, take the Volvo to Walmart, go buy a battery, and then bring that back, throw it in the Mercedes, and call it a day. This might be one of the most random things, oh Jesus, I've ever done. After searching the part number, figured out what this was. It's idle control valve hose, and just kind of by looking where the throttle body was, I figured out, okay, idle control valve's right over there. It goes right there, and then to right here. Yeah, that looks good enough for government work. Excellent. That'll do. Okay. Oh man, we're getting close, folks. All right, somewhere in my checked luggage is that's Phillips head. Genuinely don't know how I managed to bring all these tools and not a flathead. It took all of like 5 minutes, but the sunlight has vanished. So, I guess let's go to Walmart and get a battery for the other car. Okay, so there's been a change of plans here. I'll explain that in a second. But, yeah, this is the W210. This thing is interesting. I'll tell you that for sure. It definitely needs some love. But that's what we're gonna do for it. It has front and rear parking sensors, which is crazy for 1998. All right, things are going well. I'm out of breath. It just died right over there. I think it's a voltage problem. I'm gonna go buy a new battery because my jump pack even won't do it. Gonna go buy a new battery. Walmart's a 10-minute walk away, and then I'll try that out. The 210's at the gas station right now. Thankfully, some guys helped me push it into the gas station area. Didn't even make it the block. The reason I'm doing this is because I fixed the Volvo, right? Close the hood, go to start the car, and no juice. Pop the hood. Hood doesn't pop. Devastating. So now I'm walking to Walmart to get this battery, and I'm about to walk all the way back with a car battery, which, as you know, is very heavy. What am I doing? All right, battery acquired. Definitely not one of my strongest decisions. But you know, sometimes you gotta live life. And if that means doing stupid things, then I don't even know what I'm talking about. If you couldn't tell already, let's see, it's 10:15 p.m. in a place that I have absolutely no real familiarity with. This is the first time I've actually gotten strange looks from people. Yeah. This is top 10 things I've ever, or top 10 dumbest things I've ever done. Yeah, that's heavy as shit. Remind me to not do this again. All right, new battery in. I think it all lights up a lot better than it did before. All right, well, after that stupid experience that I probably should have found a better solution to, but I still made it back. This is gonna be a very random video if you couldn't tell. Well, I'm gonna scan this thing up. I'm gonna see what codes it shows. I'm gonna track the voltage because what I wanna make sure is that the battery is holding voltage and the alternator continues to charge it. Because if that's not the case, I could need to get a new alternator, which, you know, for these cars isn't hard to find, but at the same time, I'm in the middle of Kansas and I don't know how it's gonna work. Let's see, we don't think it's an alternator because it didn't have any problems beforehand, just kind of sat for a long time and the battery died. So we think that battery was just cooked. So let's find out. What a random day this has been. So this car does have OBD2, but I have a feeling that because it's a 98, I'll have to use a 38 pin connector, which thankfully I have an adapter for. I did come somewhere prepared, so I can read that if I need to. But I'm guessing it's gonna be like MAR 129, which you need to plug the 38 pin under the hood, and then we can see what this car is saying. But we should get some preliminary diagnostics just with that. So let's find out. Also, OEM all-season formats, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I suspected not reading the VIN, so I'm gonna have to use the 38 pin below the hood, and we'll go from there. Forgot the adapter that goes from this to OBD, so that's gonna be a problem. It is the next morning. These 3 clips were missing, which I knew about, so I went to the junkyard last week and I picked these clips off the car over there and put them on, and it seems to be driving fine. Now, it could just be that the sensor has not heated up yet, so I don't want to chance that necessarily. The sensor should be ready by 9 a.m., so I could start making my way to Advanced Auto Parts. It's about a 10-minute drive from here. I could try to drive this. It's kind of my only option is this guy would hatchet the grill off to get the cables. I cannot be stopped. I jammed one of my wrenches in here to keep the catch open, and I just yanked the out of this thing. And it opened. This is good news, folks. All right, we're driving the S40 on our way to get the crank position sensor from Advanced Auto, and hopefully that does it. Although I will say, I drove the 210 around the block this morning, no problems. So I don't really know at this point. That place is called Turbocharger Solutions International. Sounds pretty cool. I gotta say, the heated seats in this Volvo S40, pretty good. They're prepared for a Swedish winter. This is like, I swear, this is such an interesting place. Classics auto body. Not a soul in sight. Oh, we got some planes. Must be the airport right over there. Well, folks, we've made it to the Advanced Auto. They literally opened about 10 minutes ago. All right, next part of this quest is going to Harbor Freight, which is right there, to get some e-torque sockets for said crank position sensor. Let's go do that. Oh yeah. I swear, even in the most random towns in the US, you will always find a Vietnamese restaurant. I respect it. I do enjoy that. Welcome to America. And by America, I mean the US, obviously. All right, so if any of you worked on an M1123, even 119, you'll know crank position sensors go out like crazy and that'll ruin your day, basically. So I actually usually keep one in the trunk of my cars. In fact, I was supposed to bring one with me on this trip, but it's in my ML55 right now in the trunk, and I have a friend borrowing it right now, so I didn't have a chance to grab it. I'm just lucky the Advanced Auto close by had a Bosch one in stock and not even had to wait for it. So as soon as the store opened, grabbed it. These guys can be kind of tricky to remove because of the location they're in, and the pre-facelift cars like this have 2 tabs. The later ones only have 1, which makes it easier. It's like they figured out that this was a problem. It is pretty disgusting looking, and I need to find a date code, but it could be pretty old, and I'm not mad about changing this. So, you guys right here, let's go ahead and throw this guy in, and then hopefully we'll get to go. It's just the one E8 Torx, external Torx bolt, and then plug and play. So, all right, so slight problem here, guys. Bad news. The new sensor on the right over here, it's meant for a facelift car, meaning it has the only 1 tab on the side right there, meanwhile the pre-facelift has 2 tabs, 1 either side over there. It does seem that the internal plastic pieces are not necessarily the exact same. So I have a couple options here. One is throw the new sensor in and then de-pin the connector and pin this individually and throw some tape over it all, which I don't really want to do, to be honest with you. What I might do is try to limp it to Wichita. So it is safe to say things aren't going very well. Only made it a few miles on the road, on the freeway, and the issue persists. Over 2,000 RPM, it just shuts off basically, and goes into, well, it just shuts off essentially. You gotta put the car back in park, restart it. So I'm kind of hovering around 1,500 RPM, or about 1,750 rather, to just try and limp it to this rest stop coming up. And then I'll try and modify that crank position sensor that I did buy, and then at that point I can then go ahead and try to install that when it cools down, and you can see it shutting off right now. Oh yeah. Yep. What I'm doing is I've been filing down those tabs and sort of eating away at them with my pliers. The new one's only got 1, which I've also shaved down on the ground. And so yeah, we're gonna see if that works. The pins are the same, so I'm just kind of fingers crossed, hoping that this does something. The keyed part comes off, which means if I put this guy on, let's see. Oh, we're in business. We are in business. All right, new sensors in. Let's see how this goes. I don't want to speak too soon, but I think we're in the clear. So we've made it to Wichita, Kansas, about 75 miles from where we started. That is an oddly clean W221 S-Class. I'm approaching Oklahoma City, and I just saw the most beautiful W113 Pagoda SL going the other direction. It was like this chalk gray, like a kind of like an Naruto gray with a red interior. Top was down. Guy was enjoying it. What is that doing? I mean, I guess we're close to a major city, but still, it just seems so random. I want one of those so badly. Anyways, on with the drive. Well, folks, as it turns out, Oklahoma City is in fact a real place. This is my second and hopefully last fuel stop. My first fuel stop was back where we started in Kansas, and this thing's a trooper, man. There is a weird vibration at, it sounds like it's from right behind the transmission at around 85, 90 miles per hour, so I'm gonna cool it with that and not push it beyond that. I think it's the Guibo. Hopefully it lasts me all the way back to Houston, where we can then change that out later this week. Wow. This thing is also shockingly good in gas, I will say. The benefits of an M112. And I am using regular because, well, the previous owner's been using regular pretty much his entire ownership. So, you know, it should be okay. And I know some of you are going to be mad at me about that, but It is what it is. I'll give it some 93 in Texas. Super nice rest stop. Coming to you live from a hill. This is the first hill I've seen my entire trip so far. Welcome to Dallas. It's super blurry. I lied earlier. Last fuel stop. We are less than an hour away from my final destination, so we are almost there. I'm actually doing pretty well. Windshield is looking fantastic. As you can see, this car has what I like to call patina and character. Yeah, I think this, I need to replace that for sure. That's like the main thing. If we don't have that, then what is this car even, right? I mean, I think this car speaks for itself. I've made it between northern Kansas and now we're basically in Houston metro area already. It's pretty impressive for a car that has 307,000 miles. So, you know, truly cannot complain.
3 days later.
All right, folks, today we are doing some diag on the E320. This car is running and driving just fine. It does have some vacuum leaks, as you'd expect. It does have the 38 pin, or at least the 13 pin, I want to say connector. I forgot which number of pins it has. We're scanning it from the engine bay, and with my adapter for this King Bull NK8. Did a full sort of health report, and it had several issues. I should have taken a video and landscape of all the faults it had stored, but pretty much everything had a fault. And I think it's because this car had no voltage when I first got it, as you guys know from the previous video. But the only one that comes back right now, I haven't driven the car yet, is basically the entire Parktronic module is at fault, which means either the module is faulty or you know, there's a fuse that's blown somewhere. So we'll have to take a look at that and see what's up with that. But I'll probably drive the car about 50 miles or so, and then we'll see what comes back. Regardless, so what's wrong with this car overall? The biggest issue, because I'm in Houston, Texas, where it is 91 degrees right now with very high humidity, the AC doesn't work. Now, the compressor does not kick on, which I think just means there's no refrigerant in there. It could be the compressor is faulty, but I think it's just a simple pressure issue. It could be a pressure switch, it could be lack of refrigerant. My best guess is that all of the refrigerant has leaked out over time, and as a result, it won't turn the compressor on. There's no pressure in the system. So I'll be checking that out later today and seeing what's going on that front. It could be as simple as just topping off the AC temporarily to have functioning AC while I figure out where the leak is and putting some UV dye in there. But we'll see how that goes. That's the biggest issue that affects usability. In terms of mechanics, there is, and in powertrain and all that stuff, there is a weird vibration at about 50 miles an hour that is not even there, going faster or slower. I would suspect probably some sort of control arm bushing up front or a tie rod of some sort, so I'll have to take a look at that at some point as well. Also, there is a little bit of a noise or a clunk from the transmission area as you accelerate from a standstill. So I suspect that is a transmission rear flex disc or something like that, or a drive shaft center support bearing, although it really feels like it's right around here somewhere, which would be the flex disc, so I'll have to take a look at that too. And definitely the major issues are the power steering hoses, or the SLS, self-leveling suspension hoses. There's a large tank in the engine bay. This tank right here contains your fluid for your self-leveling suspension and the power steering fluid. It uses a tandem pump on the wagons because you have hydraulic rear suspension that can adjust the various ride heights depending on the load in the trunk, which is pretty cool. But the hose, I believe the hose that goes back to the rack and also out of the cooler is leaking profusely. So you have to top this thing off every once in a while, otherwise you don't have power steering. Here we've got our connector hooked up to the under hood connector. This car does have OBD2 for emissions reading, but for actual diagnostics, you have to use that port. Pretty cool, comes with my scanner. Other things I've noticed that are wrong with this car, one of the two electric fans up front does not function, so I believe that one works, that doesn't. it still works. The temperatures stay fine even in this heat, which is a pretty good thing. Also, something I've noticed is that if you look in the washer fluid reservoir, you'll see coolant. And that's because these two hoses are designed for, if you live in a colder climate, it actually puts coolant through a coil in there. But unfortunately, these coils can leak. And there's really no point fixing it in Houston because that doesn't really have to be a thing here. It doesn't get that cold very often. And if it does get cold, it's not going to freeze your washer fluid tank. My SL has the same thing, R129. It actually has the exact same issue where it's leaking coolant through those hoses, and you end up with low coolant, and you have coolant in your washer fluid tank. The easiest fix for this is quite literally just to take these two hoses off, loop them, and then you're good to go. So I'll be doing that shortly as well. But yeah, you can see that everything's just coated with power steering fluid, or I should say hydraulic fluid, for the self-leveling suspension and power steering. Otherwise, things just kind of work, and if it's not broken, I'm not really going to fix it on this car. This car has 307,000 miles, and I just want to make it to be a usable car for somebody who can daily drive this thing and not really worry too much about it. These cars aren't worth very much. This is by no means a very clean example of an S210 E320, but we can make it look a little bit nicer. Gonna polish up those headlights. I have a new hood ornament on the way. Overall, this thing's not too bad. We have one minor tear in the seat. We have OEM all-season mats, which is pretty cool. The steering wheel, I mean, I did try cleaning a little bit over here, but not too much, but I think a deep clean will do this thing pretty well. Ultimately, a different steering wheel would be the best case scenario for this car, but it's gonna be just fine with that if I clean it up. So yeah. You can see on the passenger side, things aren't too bad, you know, it looks a little bit oily here and there, but to be expected for a car of this age, you know, it has valve cover gasket leaks, I know for sure. Then you come to the driver's side, and oh my gosh, every single thing is coated. That's all from the power steering and self-leveling suspension leak, which we're hoping to resolve right now. Check out these tie rod ends. This is almost no effort, by the way. I'm gonna push it. So it's been about, I want to say, 2 months with this car now, and you know what? I've had my fun with it. I've enjoyed my time with the Wagon, and I've done some small things to make it a little bit better than it was when I first got it. But it's time to sell. It's time to move on to something else, or just focus on my other projects. To be completely honest with you, half the reason I bought this car was to drive it back on a road trip because I wanted to do something fun like that, and it has definitely served its purpose. The AC in this car does not work, and I don't really have the time or patience to deal with that. I figured it'd be best to kind of let it go on cheap and let someone else take care of that. It's either the condenser or the evaporator core. If it's the condenser, pretty easy job. Whoever gets it next will have a pretty quick time figuring that out. If it's the evaporator core, good luck. That requires taking the dash out, and that's not exactly the most fun job in the world. But either way, you know, for Houston, as you can see, I'm already glistening brilliantly. It's not exactly ideal to have a car without functional AC. For those of you who've never been to the American South, or I should say the southern United States, it is very tropical in some ways, but it is very hot, especially in Texas where I live. It can get up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, in fact 95-ish, but a very high percentage of humidity, which makes a car without AC almost worthless. Now, I did pay pretty much nothing for this car, so if I can get back whatever I put into it, which is also pretty much nothing, I will be very happy as long as it's going to a good home. I could easily junk this car and probably make back most of what I got and minimize my losses. However, as you may expect, I don't want to do that. I'd love to see this go to a good home, an enthusiast perhaps, or someone who can appreciate this for what it is. So what did I use this 210 for? Well, while I had the car, my ML was being borrowed by a family friend for about a month, so I was lacking a vehicle with utility. So this kind of came in handy as I was also moving house during this time, and having a vehicle to haul items was absolutely crucial. I more or less moved my entire garage, minus, my big toolbox, in this Wagon in one trip. Now, it was pretty incredible how much space you really do have when all the seats are folded down. It's basically a work van. So certainly a one-car solution for many people. I can see why the E-Class AMG wagons are just lauded after. I mean, they are the best of all worlds, truly. The only thing a wagon can't really do is tow, and that's why I have my ML. Otherwise, I probably would have an E63 or 55 wagon of some sort. Given that I do own an E39 as well, which is the direct rival to the 210 E-Class, I do have some insight on that, and that primarily is that I do prefer the E39 for myself. Why, you may ask? Well, first of all, it is a much sportier driving experience. The chassis feels a lot more well-balanced, and it's certainly sportier from the get-go. The 210 is certainly more comfort biased, it's a lot smoother of a ride in general, and the Wagon does have the SLS self-leveling suspension at the rear, which is hydraulically operated, which actually has been fairly reliable. I cannot complain about that. And it works. It just works very well. I replaced one high-pressure line during my ownership of this vehicle, and it's never sagged. It's never, been too low. It's never been too high. It always is at the perfect level, no matter how much stuff I've shoved in the trunk of this thing. The 210 steering is very, very light, very similar to my R129 SL500, which is the exact opposite of my E39's very stiff, heavy power steering, which I do appreciate because it gives you a feeling of directness and precision. The 210 is certainly more isolated, which is its intention. I think they're very different cars and they're hard to compare directly. Mind you, these are both non-M, non-AMG vehicles. And I do think the non-M BMWs tend to be a bit more sporting in nature than a non-AMG Mercedes. That's just something I've noticed all over the years. Across the eras as well, it seems to be a pretty similar case. In terms of build quality, my gosh, the 210 is built extraordinarily well. I mean, this car has 309,000 miles. And yes, the headliner's sagging. Yes, there are certain rattles and whatnot. The wood is cracked in some areas, but overall, it's held up extremely well. The front seats do have minor issues. For example, in the perforations, you do see some small tears. But for the mileage, you really can't complain about that. I mean, look at the door cards, too. Everything's very solid. I think when you consider this specific car where it's not in perfect condition, it's a really good way to tell, the longevity of these parts and the durability. I do not have confidence in any car past this point. Maybe a 212 would age better, or similarly at least, aside from button peel and whatnot. But certainly not the 213 or 214 E-Class are certainly not as durable as these 210s were. I mean, these things are just absolute tanks, and it's hard to fault them much for build quality, at least on the inside. And I know that this was during a time when Mercedes was kind of cutting back and was cutting build quality a little bit here and there, especially when the Daimler-Chrysler merger happened. But the 210 seems to have done better than most. I know a very common issue with these is rust. These 210s like to rust like crazy, but in these parts of the US, the American South and the West Coast and whatnot, where this car primarily lived, that's not really a concern, and this car has very, very little rust aside from some minor surface things where paint is missing, which is understandable in that case. This car has thankfully not taken very much money from me. I'm still in this car less than $1,000, well under than actually. Another great thing I've enjoyed is just how fuel efficient the 210 is. I mean, really, the M112 V6 is a fuel sipper, at least compared to my other cars. Is the M112 as engaging as the M54 or my 530i? Not even close. In fact, it's a very boring engine, but boring is good if you want something that's reliable and will stand the test of time quite well, especially when you have over 300,000 miles. And I'm quite happy to report that the E320 is off to its new owner already. And in fact, it's a fellow car enthusiast. This guy is rebuilding the engine in his Ford SVT Focus, and he wants a car to haul parts in and also just a daily drive, and this E320 wagon fit the bill perfectly. So hopefully it sees many more miles to come and lives on as long as it can, which, with these cars, it could be a very long time.
If you guys like this video and all my content so far, check out sta-industries.com and check out all the German car apparel I have, especially M15 stick stuff. I have license plate frames, cool hoodies, sweaters, high quality stuff with nice embroidery. Check it out, you won't regret it. I'm always posting new stuff on the website, including ML stuff coming soon, specifically ML63 engine rebuild stuff, as it's pretty relevant to what I'm doing right now. But yeah, check out what I already got in there. Lots of cool M156 stuff that I really enjoy wearing while I work on my cars. There is also other Mercedes stuff already up there, like for my SL500, M119 stuff, including a lot of BMW apparel as well, so go check it out.